Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Now, today is a special evening report. Obviously, there is a lot going on in the ongoing war between the Russian Federation and the Ukraine. Specifically, within the last 48 hours, thousands of Russian troops have stormed across the Ukrainian border within the vicinity of Kharkov. Elements of the Russian 18th Motorized Rifle Division, supported by former forces of Wagner, are taking part in this reported operation. Obviously, there are other units also of the Russian military involved. We don't know the exact details on those units. We expect that at least there are over 10,000 Russian troops in this ongoing operation. Now, as we have talked about before, there is some debate on this. Is this the establishment of a Russian buffer zone? Or is this a designed operation to focus on possibly besieging or enveloping Kharkov? I think this could go either way at this point. I think the Russians are going to learn and watch what is happening on the ground. We are receiving reports of very heavy fighting taking place. Now, from the Ukrainian side, when things are not going well for the Ukrainians, they don't say that. They will report about how many Russians that they are killing or wounding or capturing or what have you. But when things get really bad for the Ukrainians, they tend to use the term terribly difficult. And we are starting to hear a lot of that from Ukrainian media. The situation is terribly difficult. From press reports in the region, we have heard that there have been dozens upon dozens of Russian airstrikes. There have been between 70 and 100 Russian airstrikes, not just in the area near Kharkov, but in other areas as well. Now, why this is happening, why the Russians launch this spring Kharkov offensive with thousands of troops, tanks, armored infantry fighting vehicles storming across the border. Further to the south, other operations are ongoing. Now, this is very important. This location here, Krasnohorovka. I am sure I butchered that, and I apologize. But this area was a strong point of Ukrainian forces. The Russians have broken through and are in the process of clearing this town of Ukrainian forces. In other areas, the area where the Ukrainians launched their failed summer counteroffensive, Robatna, is now under the control of Russian forces. Fighting is taking place in this sector as well. This is not just an offensive that is taking place north of Kharkov. The Russians are attacking along multiple sectors of the theater of war. Now, this is very early in what is obviously a very large Russian operation. Again, is this the creation of a buffer zone? Is this a larger operation because the Russians feel at this point the Ukrainian morale, the Ukrainian combat cohesion is starting to collapse? That is also a possibility. But we are seeing a lot of fresh Russian units being moved into many of these areas. The unit that is being used south of Belgorod, northeast of Kharkov, besides the Wagner units. The 18th Motorized Rifle Division originates in the enclave of Kaliningrad. Now, these units, this is not anything new that this Motorized Rifle Division, this reformed 18th Motorized Rifle Division, this is not new that it has been deployed to the combat zone. It was used earlier at the start of the campaign as well. This was when the Russians were using these battalion tactical groups, and a certain amount of battalion tactical groups were formed from the 18th Motorized Rifle Division. Now, the size and scope of the 18th that is being deployed in this sector, difficult to say. Obviously, Russia has a number of very capable combat units that have been newly formed that they have the ability to deploy. And again, things are very tough for the Ukrainians right now. Number one, manpower. Given the casualties over the course of the last 6 months, the concept of going to fight at the front, many Ukrainians don't want to do it anymore. It is nowhere near the size and scope of the volunteers or the level and the amount of volunteers that were signing up to fight earlier in the war. Now people are being conscripted. They are being forced to go to the front lines. And that is creating this major morale issue that we are seeing along the front as we speak. So we'll continue to focus on what is happening. We're watching in several different areas, just not Kharkov. Again, this is a very large, very focused operation that is ongoing. And we're going to watch this and continue to report. As always, thank you for joining us today. More to come very, very soon. Have a good day. Durka Durka.